any other time in the history, and although our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada stressed on this point on many occasions. We can read about this in his purports, we can read about it or hear about it rather in his lectures and conversations. Srila Prabhupada, being a self-realized soul, being Uttam Adhikari, could see the future, could understand that if humanity continues on this suicidal path, actually, Prabhupada in one purport mentions how he was referring to the slaughtering of cows, this modern practice of not even thinking about the bad effects, the ill effects of slaughtering cows. Prabhupada explained, they are following a suicidal policy. And this is, of course, not only happening in terms of cows, but it is happening in terms of Mother Earth itself, in terms of what kind of ecological disasters we have made, we have produced, simply due to stubbornly refusing to hear and to accept the good advice and the good instructions that are given in Shastra. I was very pleased to hear, of course, the offerings from various devotees, and it's amazing how it's already, we have devotees, we have amongst the family, we call VRS family, some devotees already serving the mission for 30 years as disciples, and of course getting so many different kinds of realizations. I should take this opportunity actually to, excuse me. Somehow I was muted, I just unmuted.
YouTube live is also, we have sent link. YouTube live is going on.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So that link also we have sent there.
Okay.
About this.
Anyway, just carry on.
Yeah.
The longer we serve in the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the longer we serve in the mission of Srila Prabhupada, if we are serving nicely, sincerely, Krishna will give us so many kinds of realizations. Realization comes from Krishna, actually. This is nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that when we come to the mode of goodness, Sattva Guna. Sattva Guna means when the mind is peaceful, content, happy, not bothered by the ups and downs and various problems of the material world. Simply endeavoring to serve Guru and Krishna. So Bhagavatam explains, Evam prasana manaso. When the mind is prasana, peaceful. Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogata. We can perform our activities of bhakti very nicely. And by the good performance of devotional service, then Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam. This is where Krishna actually reciprocates. Krishna reciprocates. Krishna is eager, is very eager to reciprocate. To reciprocate means Krishna is very eager to speak to us, to instruct us, to help us understand what he wants. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, we are Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are the eternal parts and parcels. And as often Srila Prabhupada would explain, part and parcel means we are meant to serve the whole. Just like one part of a machine, if it is not there, the machine will not work properly. So we are part and parcel of Krishna. Our only business, if we want to be happy, if we want to truly be spiritually happy, means eternally happy, is to learn to simply organize our lives in such a way that we are serving Krishna. We are serving the mission of the Lord. And we have spoken on this point so many times. Krishna descends in the material world to speak about and to demonstrate the principles of dharma. Srila Prabhupada explains that dharma is what differentiates humans from animals. When we are humans, if we are humans, then we will believe in God, we will practice dharma. Animals don't know, cannot understand also about dharma. So this human form of life we are hearing constantly from Shastra and from Acharyas is especially to learn about and to practice dharma. Of course, our eternal dharma, Sanatan dharma, is to be again reconnected with Krishna. Is to return actually to our forgotten and lost abode, means Goloka, Vrindavan, to return to the spiritual world. And Krishna very wonderfully has arranged things in such a way that we can begin that journey back home, back to Godhead, even within this material world. By following dharma, by understanding what is dharma. I'm happy to notice as I hear some of my disciples, today it was coming out also, and of course as I exchange either through email or other means with devotees, slowly, gradually there's an increase in understanding how not only we are meant to understand about spiritual dharma, but we are also meant to understand about material dharma. There are two aspects which are meant to support one another. Two aspects of dharma which are meant to harmonize if we want to live a life based on the teachings of the Lord, based on the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. We have to understand and we have to become convinced that the model that Lord Krishna has shown us by living in Vrindavan is meant to be the eternal model and way of life and lifestyle for those living in the material world. The more we understand this, the more we will also understand how much we have in our modern society deviated from this.
और हम लोग अभी इस संसार इस टाइम पे इस तरह का जीवन शैली से कितना दूर चले गए हैं।
And because of having deviated, we have created and caused all of the major problems that we are experiencing today around the world. And such major problems that are actually threatening our very existence, that are threatening actually the existence of this planet itself. Madhava Prabhu was mentioning in his presentation how, according to the scientists, if we continue in the direction we're going in now, by exploiting more and more the natural resources on the planet, through what we call agribusiness, through dairy farming, within a very short period of 60 years, this planet, Mother Earth, will not be able to sustain us because of too much of destruction. I was sharing, as I was visiting in the last few years, as part of my research, 108 villages here in India, how the scientists have calculated that in the last 20 years alone, in the last 20, maximum 30 years, the last 3 decades, we have already used up, we have already, in many ways, destroyed 33% of the natural resources on the planet. There are many such kind of statistics. I don't want to get into that right now. Quite a few of them I mentioned in the book that we put out in 2018 on the occasion actually of our cow culture conference in California. Modernity is killing civilization. There are many statistics that are mentioned in that book. I would simply like to, of course, thank the various devotees, not only those who have spoken now, but disciples in different countries who are able to more and more grasp and understand this dimension of Srila Prabhupada's mission, which is to reestablish Varnasrama Dharma. To me, Varnasrama Dharma is in many ways as deep and profound as scientific as is Bhagavat Dharma. In other words, the science, Krishna has different energies, as we know, 3 main energies. The Bahiranga Shakti, this material world in which we're living, and this Tatastha Shakti, the living entities, and this internal energy. We are caught in between these 2 energies, the internal and external energy. The point I want to make is that Krishna's external energy, when we know how to properly utilize it, as Prabhupada often would explain, it is no longer being again reconnected with Krishna. It is no longer a material energy. It becomes actually spiritual because of its connection with Krishna. So I've been observing some of the activities of the ministry we have here in India, although it needs to be taken much further, but there is, I would say, more interest, more awareness that has been created amongst a number of our leaders in India. And just someone yesterday sent me a text message whereby one of our organizational groups here in India is going to discuss tomorrow the need and the importance of outreach in the villages, which is, of course, the main focus of
Unmute Maharaj. It's got music.
the main focus of the ministry that we have. Well, I'm only seeing pictures on the screen, so there's no place for me to unmute. I don't know how to do that. Somebody can. And why do I become unmuted? You know? Okay, that's how you do it. Okay. I hope I was not disconnected for too long. In any event, I was mentioning how this awareness, definitely partly through the efforts of the ISKCON Varnasrama ministry here in India, and actually every country should have a similar ministry. Every country should have at least a committee or department. We have been promoting and pushing. As a matter of fact, we passed a resolution a few years ago whereby every ISKCON temple in India should have a department for village preaching, village outreach. Villages, we need to understand, are the backbone of Vedic culture. And the cows in those villages are the backbone of those villages. Now we have still many villages here in India, although that is decreasing more and more every day because of the exodus, ongoing exodus in the cities. But our villages here in India are very badly affected in so many ways because of modern influence. We have developed a motto in our ministry, beginning with save our cows, save our villages, and save our culture. This actually should become the motto of ISKCON. Because we cannot establish and we cannot live, we cannot experience the Vedic culture if we are disconnected with cows and the land. Krishna's whole life experience that he demonstrated in Vrindavan, as we all know, is directly, intimately, daily connected with cows and the land. And I have mentioned this on many occasions. I'll repeat it because it's very important. This is one of the major instructions given by Grandfather Vishnudev. If humanity, if mankind wants to be successful,
They're not able to hear properly because the video is taking a lot of bandwidth. They're asking to mute the video. Audio can be on.
I can mute the video. Okay. They're going to wonder, who is this guy? I'm using somebody else's computer. That's why we have a great devotee's picture on the. It's okay. So, kindly excuse the interruption here. I was making the point how we cannot experience Maybe you should be here to see what's happening here because somebody's doing something. I mean, I should not be bothered with these things.
Yeah.
Okay. It's come back.
That's fine.
Okay. People are working in the background.
They're putting the picture.
Yeah. Okay, got it. We cannot experience actual Vedic culture here in this material world. And Krishna has created, for those of us who are in the material world, who have come in the material world, He has created and desired for us to live a particular lifestyle. It's referred to in the Bhagavad Gita as prescribed duties. We read about prescribed duties, but we still don't understand what that is. Just like on the spiritual level, prescribed duties means activities of bhakti, devotional service. That we have some understanding, much more understanding. But on the material level, there are directives, there are instructions, very clear instructions given in our Shastra as to how we should live materially, so that we don't exploit the resources of material nature, so that we don't exploit other living entities, so that we don't cause harm or violence upon other living entities. Prabhupada was one of the first spiritual personalities who gave us the real meaning of what is non-violence. We generally think of non-violence as not causing pain, not hurting another body, another living entity. But Srila Prabhupada's understanding, not only of course about non-violence, but about dharma especially, goes beyond what most people understand. So we actually become violent, even though we may not know or understand, when we prevent or inhibit other living entities from advancing in Krishna consciousness. So for us to actually become ideally non-violent, it means that we should be doing our utmost, all that we can, to give opportunities to all kinds of living entities to one day go back home, back to Godhead. So in order for that to happen, we need to understand and we need to follow the guidelines or the manual that Krishna has given in the Shastra. And that manual is based on living a simple life. We hear this all the time. We read it also in Prabhupada's books. Simple living and high thinking. So that simple living and high thinking will more easily come, will more naturally come, will more quickly come when we are living as Krishna advises, as Krishna demonstrated. The more we understand this, then we will be making efforts to again reintroduce that lifestyle, or in our present scenario all over the world, beginning with India, we will make efforts to try and preserve and protect whatever may be still existing in the villages. Prabhupada had a strong desire to go to the villages. He wrote to one of his disciples, "When I come to India, I want to travel by car from village to village." Prabhupada understood that if we lose our villages, we lose completely our culture, our Vedic culture. So the whole world, we should understand, is being very severely misled by being more and more disconnected with the basics of what the Vedic culture is all about. So therefore, in order for that to happen, we've been stressing on this point as well. Prabhupada himself stressed on this point. In order for us to understand about Vedic culture, about especially Varnasrama Dharma, then the educational aspect must come in the picture. So therefore Prabhupada wanted that we establish Varnasrama colleges. And Srila Prabhupada also wanted that we establish traditional Gurukulas. These are absolutely essential for us to actually fulfill the mission of Srila Prabhupada and the mission as well of Lord Chaitanya. What is the mission of Lord Chaitanya? Okay, it's chanting the holy name. But it's not only chanting the holy name. The mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Golo Krishna Shikha. Mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the mission of Krishna. Whatever Krishna instructed in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, that is also our mission. Of course, Lord Chaitanya has introduced very special features. He is described as the most beneficent incarnation because he is giving the opportunity of the highest level of transcendental realization to the most fallen of Kali Yuga. So sometimes we hear devotees, sometimes we hear senior devotees also downplaying or even rejecting the whole concept of Varnasrama Dharma. This is very unfortunate. We cannot take such kind of positions when they are especially being stressed upon and promoted and emphasized by our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. I was also explaining how, when we reach the age of 75, it's unthinkable actually, but some of you will reach one day. And as some of our devotees also mentioned, time just goes so quickly. We are soon to end one phase of Prabhupada's movement. That first phase, we could say Prabhupada's movement, is about to come to a close within the next 10 years, where the vast majority of Prabhupada's disciples will no longer be here. And this means that our second generation and third generation of devotees need to take up the mantle. And unless we have understood some of the basic instructions in the context of Varnasrama Dharma given by Srila Prabhupada, this mission will not succeed. We understand from our acharyas that the success of a disciple is in understanding and putting into practice the instructions of his Guru Maharaj. Otherwise, forget about being successful. We have all seen in the last few years, even in the last few months, how some of our very senior-most disciples of Srila Prabhupada have already, it is happening on the, more quickly. I mean, some of our some of my godbrothers started to leave even some 20 years ago. But now this will be happening on a more frequent basis. And it should be a signal and an indication for the movement to really come to grips with this whole aspect and dimension of Varnasrama Dharma. And therefore, in the last few years especially, I've been trying to give emphasis, and I'm also happy to see how some of my godbrothers as well are endeavoring to promote this particular aspect. And our devotees here in India actually have a special role and responsibility, because it is here in the land of Bharatvarsha that Dharma, the roots of Dharma are here in India. And of course, we know from history how India, Hastinapur, now New Delhi, Hastinapur was the capital of the whole world, isn't it? Up until Yudhishthira Maharaj or Parikshit Maharaj. And since the beginning of Kali Yuga, we have strayed away more and more from the Vedic culture, and especially in the last 200 years. And we are seeing how, even though so much of scientific, so-called scientific advancement has been there, scientific discoveries, there are more scientists in the last, let's say, 3 decades, or even existing now, that have existed throughout the whole of history. But even though we have so many bright, intelligent people, because of having disconnected actually with the Vedic culture, just see where we have taken the world today, isn't it? I mean, we hear in Shastra how a sign, one of the signs of good government is that people are happy. People are not in anxiety. Which country in the world today can we point to and say that people are happy? I don't know of any country. Everyone is in anxiety because of lack of proper leadership. So I just want to speak briefly on this aspect of leadership. Vedic education, Vedic culture, especially emphasizes and is arranged in such a way to train up leaders. In the context of Varnasrama Dharma, leaders are those who will actually implement the principles of Varnasrama Dharma. It is not the Brahmanas. And therefore Prabhupada would say, ISKCON as a society, ISKCON, which is meant to especially represent the Brahminical dimension of the Vedic culture. ISKCON as a society is not interested to take up a political role or to take charge. That is not our business. Which means that actually those who must take up leadership will, although they may be connected with ISKCON, but will not be officially representing ISKCON. It means that Varnasrama Dharma, in many ways, needs to happen unofficially outside of ISKCON. Although it is an integral part of our ISKCON society and of the Vedic culture. we need to train individuals. The training of such leaders must come from within our ISKCON society, and they will only come if we give a lot more emphasis and importance on truly traditional education. And this traditional education, as we mentioned earlier, as it is explained by our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, as it is further elaborated in our Vedic literatures, begins with Gurukula. And in the context in which we are today, Srila Prabhupada has introduced the concept of Varnasrama colleges. And that is why about a year back, we started the Varnasrama college online. Prabhupada wanted that every single center have a Varnasrama college. Srila Prabhupada wanted that every single center also have a farm community connected with city preaching. So my humble request is that devotees, not only those who are my disciples, but devotees in general, give more time and importance to understanding this dimension of Srila Prabhupada's mission. Srila Prabhupada had great hopes and expectations for this movement, the Hare Krishna movement, because truly speaking, it is the only movement that is having this strong connection and basis on the Vedic culture, and that has, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada himself, this understanding that without the teachings that are there in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, means we need to create not only brahmanas. Prabhupada, when he first went to America, especially focused and emphasized creating brahmanas. But it's a false understanding to think that everybody in ISKCON will become brahmana. You see, even I would say the vast majority of devotees who are initiated as brahmanas may not be brahmanas, or should I say, are not brahmanas. You see. And therefore, it is absolutely essential and necessary for us. It's in practically every other page of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Even if you try to avoid the word Varnasrama, it is there, popping up all the time. You see. So my humble request is, we need as a society and as individual practicing devotees within the society, the whole world is actually waiting for this kind of knowledge. The whole world is going to hell because of being completely disconnected with the pure knowledge that we find in the Vedic literatures. And it is a great challenge actually for all of us, because how to present is the same kind of challenge that Srila Prabhupada faced when he went to New York. And he expressed that also in his poem, that I am coming to the most degraded place on the planet, New York City, where people are engaged in all kinds of sinful activities, and where the mode of passion and ignorance, tamagun and rajagun and tamagun are prevalent. How will I introduce this topmost knowledge of Krishna consciousness to such fallen individuals? We're still very much in a similar dilemma. The whole world is in need of this knowledge, and we need to become one of the qualities of a devotee. Daksha is to become expert, isn't it? One of the 26 qualities of Vaishnava, to become expert. And that is only possible if we get the mercy of Krishna, if we get the mercy of the Vaishnavas. So on this day, I make this humble request that we pray to Lord Krishna, that we pray to Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, to give us the good intelligence, proper understanding, how to take forward this mission, how to present the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in such a way that it will be appealing to as many people as possible. Prabhupada did say we should not be living in, in a bubble. Prabhupada did say that the vast majority of people will likely not take up our lifestyle. And therefore, he instructed at least some percentage of the population will take it up if we are able to provide examples and models of how we should be living. And this will only be possible if we train up our young people, our Gurukul boys, and this type of lifestyle and this type of understanding. I don't want to take much more time now, and because we have another session. I'm not sure, I think it's supposed to be at 3 o'clock or something. 3:30, okay, that's good, because we need some time for a break. So, once again, thank you very much to all the devotees for organizing this event. I am also feeling great separation from all the devotees, especially the devotees in Indonesia. And I also pray that one day, as our Prabhu Kishore was mentioning, he was inviting, when will our devotees from India again visit, Bali and Gita Nagari Baru? I very much encourage not only our own devotees here, but whenever it may be possible. Indonesia is still holding on, amazingly, to many aspects and dimensions of the Vedic culture, some of which are not so obvious here in India. In other words, we have things to learn. I can vouch for that, having visited Indonesia, having lived there 4 years in a row, actually when I was doing some studies, that there are dimensions and aspects of the Vedic culture that we no longer find here in India. Because they are, for so many centuries, up until 500 years ago, the whole of Indonesia was following Vaishnava culture. They had Vaishnava kings, up until 500 years ago. So, once again, thank you all very much, and may Krishna bless all of us so that we can remain enthusiastic, one of the important qualities emphasized and mentioned by Sri Varnasrama Swami. Regardless of all, there will always be obstacles in the material world. Krishna consciousness is giving us that opportunity to properly and more easily face those obstacles without being disturbed, without being overly disturbed. Let us take shelter of the teachings and wonderful instructions given by Srila Prabhupada. Let us endeavor to fulfill his mission, and in this way we can continue nicely to practice our Krishna consciousness, and we can try to present it to as many people around the world as possible. Thank you all very much. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai. Thank all the people of the Hare Krishna.